Our main girl here has the absolute worst luck imaginable. Right out of the gate, she gets kissed by a truck and instantly logs out of Earth. She transmigrates into an isekai world thinking she'd get that main character glow, but instead, she spawns as the villainess that everyone loves to hate. In the original game, her personality was pure trash. She'd massacre servants for fun and loved watching the heroes tear each other apart. She lived as a hater and died by the blade. Seeing her own outplayed tragic ending, she's so shocked she's ready to faint on the spot. Her name is Pride, and she used to be just your basic, everyday high school student. Who would have guessed that after getting sent off by Truckkuin, she'd end up as the ultimate big bad of a video game? Now, her brain is running on one single question: how do I not get absolutely clapped by the protagonist squad? She's trying every trick in the book to dodge this high-tier cooked ending. Right then, her dad walks into the room to see what's going on with his favorite daughter. Pride takes the chance to ask if she has a sister. According to the script, her sister is one of the main protagonists who will deliver a massive beatdown to her in the future. Her dad is completely shook. He thinks his kid just unlocked some game-breaking prophecy powers. He immediately rushes off to tell his wife the good news. Pride, however, is overthinking everything. Unlocking prophecy powers means she's next in line for the throne, and being the queen usually means she'll go full villain and eventually get deleted. While her brain is lagging, she remembers her dad is supposed to have a carriage accident. She immediately hauls it to the window to stop him from heading out. At that exact moment, a convenient gust of wind almost sends Pride flying out the window. Luckily, a servant lunges in for a clutch save. Once she catches her breath, she sees all the servants in the room kneeling and begging for mercy like their lives depend on it. Pride realizes her past self was such a toxic nightmare that everyone is genuinely terrified of her. Her dad is ready to vibe check the servants to protect her, but Pride stops him and actually speaks up for them. This 180-degree pivot has everyone frozen. Talk about a dizzying personality shift. The next morning, the servants are noticeably less stressed. Most importantly, Pride successfully patched the map and saved her dad from the Reaper. If the game can be changed, maybe her permanent logout isn't inevitable after all. But as soon as one fire is out, another spawns. She has to accept a talented foster brother, Stale, as her prince consort. With her pro-gamer knowledge of the plot, Pride knows Stale is also a main protagonist who was forced away from his mom by a ridiculous royal decree. She approaches him with maximum kindness, introducing herself as the sweetest sister ever. However, her dad suddenly suggests they sign a contract. In the original lore, this was the moment Pride tricked him into a slave contract, turning him into an overworked bot for her own gain. Seeing the script trying to go back to its toxic roots, Pride decides to make a big brain move. In the middle of the night, she sneaks into Stale's room, hands him a hacked key, and tells him to run before things get worse. But Stale rejects the offer instantly. If he bails, the royals will end his mom back home. Pride is heartbroken and feels the weight of her guilt as she quietly retreats. The next day, Pride still has to sign the contract with her brother, but this time she gently tells him, "From now on, we're family." When Stale falls sick from missing his mom, Pride goes into full panic mode, personally nursing him by his bedside. Seeing him cry out for his mother reminds her of the trash-tier version of herself that eventually forced him to delete his own mom. She cries and apologizes repeatedly, swearing to make it up to him and serve the people. Stale is genuinely moved and gives his sister a hug. But life isn't always a wholesome slice of life. That night, Stale has a nightmare where Pride forces him to sign the slave contract, making him do all sorts of heinous, subhuman acts. No matter how much rage he feels, the contract forces him to obey. He swears he has to delete this woman. Stale wakes up in a cold sweat, completely confused by the glitchy and terrifying vision he just saw. So, Stale heads off to see the king while carrying that bad omen from his nightmare. But surprise, Pride is already there, and she's actually asked her dad to hand Stale a letter. Stale is absolutely floored when he realizes it's a letter from his mother. The king explains that Pride went through a massive brain grind to find a way for that letter to reach him. Stale is so touched he's practically fainting from emotion. He dives into his sister's arms, crying like a waterfall and swearing he'll repay this kindness no matter what. Of course, this wholesome sibling bonding doesn't sit well with the Prime Minister. He watches them, thinking the whole scene is totally extra and annoying. Later, as Stale heads back to his room to write a reply, he overhears someone talking trash about Pride. He uses his teleportation skill to lurk behind some bushes and catches the Prime Minister clapping back at the princess behind her back. The old man is calling Pride a snake-hearted monster who abuses her brother every day, basically the trash of the year. Stale is grit-teeth furious and wants to snitch immediately, but he realizes he's still too green to take on the Prime Minister's clout. Instead, he settles on a silent vow to buff his own stats so he can protect Pride better. Meanwhile, the second princess, Tiara, is celebrating her 6th birthday. She's super hyped to meet her big sister but low-key scared that Pride might hate her. On the other side, Stale sees Pride getting cold feet and tells her to boost her confidence and look cool. Pride finally summons enough courage to walk tall toward the throne. Seeing her daughter acting more mature, the queen gives a proud, "My kid finally grew up" smile. This is also Stale's official debut to the world. Even though he's the adopted one, he's officially royalty now, and he's carrying himself with total main character energy. The crowd is eating it up, praising his manners. Then, at the king's invitation, Tiara makes her grand entrance. Pride knows the score. Tiara is the real light-tier heroine of this game world. In the original script, Tiara was the soul doctor who healed everyone's trauma. Everyone notices she looks exactly like the queen and starts spamming the too cute comments. Pride feels a little awkward in her heart, so she has to remind herself, whatever happens, do not bully the little sister. She reaches out her hand first, and though Tiara is a bit shy, she gives Pride a sunny smile that could melt the whole kingdom. Stale steps up to greet Tiara and suggests they both team up to support Pride. This is basically a national declaration that the three of them are a squad, and he only recognizes Pride as the future queen. The guests are going wild, and it looks like everyone is rooting for Pride to take the throne. The queen then goes public with the news that Pride has unlocked prophecy powers and will be the next in line. The crowd officially loses it with joy. The prime minister tries to slide in again, attempting to drive a wedge between the sisters. But Stale is not the one to mess with. He claps back with a few lines that leave the old man's system frozen and unable to save face. He even pulls the prince card to tell the dude to get out immediately. Stale's smiling assassin vibe even scares the two girls a little. The queen then tells the king that she used to see a bad girl future for Pride, but since the powers awakened, that timeline has vanished. It looks like the ultimate U-turn has actually happened. Since Pride met her two siblings, time has been flying faster than an ex's mood swings. Stale has started learning swordsmanship, but his skills are still a bit noob tier. The teacher catches his mistakes and beats him easily. Seeing Tiara help Stale wipe off the dust, Pride remembers their ship from the game and is totally here for it. She also decides to check her own boss stats and challenges the swordmaster to a solo. Turns out, she's so cracked she slaps the teacher silly on her first try. Stale is hit with a massive mental boom, shouting, "Sis is this strong? How am I supposed to protect her?" Seeing Stale's confidence hit zero, Pride gives him a gentle, low-key flirtatious consolation. "Actually, I'm super weak. If a bunch of bad guys surrounded me to do unwholesome things, I'd be totally cooked." The mere thought of that sends Stale into a frenzy. He demands to double his training immediately. The wholesome Tiara also vows to stay glued to her big sister so Pride never has to face that kind of danger. Later, Pride goes to inspect the night order. The vice captain gives them a warm welcome, but the captain is nowhere to be found. Turns out, he's busy handling a glitch during a training exercise. Suddenly, a soldier rushes in with a sitrep. The captain has had an accident on the road. They host an emergency meeting via magic hologram, where the captain reports they were ambushed by bandits. Nobody has logged out yet, but a bunch of soldiers are in the red and need medical supplies ASAP. Pride is absolutely losing it after hearing the news. She orders Stale to use his teleportation skill to express ship medical supplies to the front lines immediately. The Knight Commander tries to play it cool and decline because he doesn't want to be a bother, but Pride switches into serious mode. She shuts him down with a heavy truth: saving lives is like fighting a fire. Nothing matters more than the lives of our brothers right now. Thanks to Stale's remote support, the soldiers start hitting that massive health regen. But just as things are looking up, Pride remembers a major glitch from the original game and screams a warning: "I just prophesied that this cliff is about to collapse. Run for your lives." The vice commander takes the hint and orders the rookies to leave quickly, but the commander is stuck in a 5-second lag. Turns out, his leg is pinned under a rock, and he's stuck in place. He decides to sacrifice himself to cover the squad's retreat. The entire meeting room is in shambles, crying their eyes out, except for Arthur, the commander's son. He's not having it and charges in to protest. "Dad, don't you dare do something stupid." At this point, the bandits have the commander surrounded like a world boss. He's putting up a hell of a fight, but he's eventually gassed out because the enemy numbers are just too high. Pride watches this and hits a massive emotional slump, thinking she can't actually change this death map. In the heat of the moment, she decides to borrow Stale's power to personally drop into the war zone. Stale is low-key terrified for her, but he's more afraid that if she loses faith now, she'll go back to her self-destruct mode from the original game, so he gives her the green light to go live. When Pride spawns onto the battlefield, the commander is stunned into silence. Honestly, the boss tier stats on her are outplayed. She's sending enemies to the permanent lobby with a single swing. No one expected this basic-looking princess to have such broken combat power. She immediately uses her game hack knowledge to grab a black-haired bandit with an earth shield skill, yeets him over to the commander, and forces him to pop his defensive skill. The bandit knows he's out of options and buffs a shield to cover them both. In the original lore, the commander was supposed to log out under a mountain of rubble, but Pride's arrival completely flips the script. The entire team successfully survives the landslide. The soldiers look at her like she's a literal angel. After her main character moment, she quickly snaps back into her cool girl persona to coordinate the scene, demanding they reconnect comms and telling Stale to send over some specialized cuffs to take the black-haired bandit into custody. The rookies are just now realizing that the war god who just wiped the floor with the mob is actually their own princess. Arthur finally catches his breath and starts crying like a waterfall. The commander, being a total dad, strong-arms Pride and picks her up, insisting on escorting this stubborn girl back to the palace himself. Once they're back at the capital, the knights and Arthur gather around, and the commander drops the first question. Where exactly did the princess learn how to clap people like that? Pride has to play it off by claiming she has a photographic memory. She basically saw it once and copy-pasted the skills. The whole squad is shook by her hacker brain. However, the commander is still low-key salty that she risked her life. He lectures her that a knight's duty is to protect the master. If the princess depends, then their sacrifice means absolutely nothing. Pride claps back even harder, dropping a legendary lecture of her own. That habit of disregarding your own life is the biggest mistake ever. She argues that if the commander survives, he can train more elite soldiers to protect the citizens. So instead of choosing a glorious death, he should focus on how to save more people. Even if it was just a low-tier rookie trapped today, she swears she would have dove in to save them, because a queen lives for her country and won't allow any meaningless sacrifices. That speech hits the knights right in the feels, and they all drop to their knees to show Pride their infinite gratitude. Even Arthur kneels, swearing to grind his training so he can become a top-tier knight like his dad. With a single nod from the princess, Arthur vows to protect her for life, even if he has to take a massive hit for her. Pride realizes then that Arthur is the future knight commander and the only person with the potential to outswipe her in swordsmanship later on. Pride has always been low-key terrified that the original toxic soul of her body might come back and take over the stream, so she's been secretly setting up failsafes. Arthur has no clue what she's actually planning, but in his heart, he's made a silent vow. Even if he has to fight the entire world, he will be the ultimate shield for Pride until the very end. The next day, Arthur rolls up to the palace to exchange techniques with Stale. During their sparring session, Stale tells Arthur to quit holding back and go full tryhard so they can see his true peak. After a bit of light combat, the two guys hit a moment of mutual realization. They're both massive simps for Pride, vowing to be the ultimate shields for her. Just like that, they flip from rivals to besties, ready to share the struggles and wins of life. Meanwhile, Pride is reflecting on how toxic her original game self was. Back in the day, she abused slave contracts and exploited legal loopholes like a pro, leaving the country in a total mess. Now, she's determined to actually study the law and be a decent person. Her little sister Tiara, however, is still obsessed with fairy tale romance books, even commenting that the prince in her story is exactly like Stale. Stale immediately goes into wholesome big brother mode, patting her head affectionately. Pride is loving the vibe, thinking the ship is definitely sailing, until Tiara adds that the princess in the book is just like Pride, making Stale turn beet red from embarrassment. The peace doesn't last long because things get sus. The queen calls an emergency meeting to handle some high-tier gifted prisoners. To test Pride's legal knowledge, the queen puts her in the judge's seat for the interrogation. The black-haired bandit from before, Val, is dragged into the hall. The prime minister explains that Val is a mercenary hired by a rival nation to ambush the Night Order, and he even had the nerve to kidnap someone from their allied forces. In the original lore, Pride was actually the one who hired Val to delete Tiara, so she knows his profile and skill tree inside out. Currently, Val is the only one who knows where the allied knights are being held, so Pride kicks off the trial. By the book, attacking the Order is either life in prison or a permanent logout. But since Val is holding secret intel, they have to use a slave contract to ensure 100% obedience. Even though Val knows the life of a slave is down bad, he chooses a shameful life over an early grave. Pride locks in the deal, ordering Val to follow royal commands and spill all the tea. Thanks to that, the allied knights are successfully rescued. Before letting Val go, Pride drops two weirdly specific orders. First, if things go sideways, he must protect Tiara even before her, and second, if he ever faces an unbeatable problem and needs help, he should come find her. This move has Val's system frozen. He has no clue what game Pride is playing, and even Stale is lagging on her logic. Pride explains that since he's redeemed himself and been released, he's now a citizen of their country, and everyone deserves a chance to rebrand their life. Hearing this, Tiara starts feeling like she's a burden, thinking that's why her sister hired extra protection for her. Seeing how much her family loves her, Pride only doubles down on her vow to protect her siblings to the end. Later on, Arthur officially passes his tests and is dubbed a high-tier knight by Pride. While the royals are united, the prime minister is still acting sus with his own hidden agenda. He keeps pressuring Pride to pass a new bill to investigate everyone with special abilities. Out of respect for human rights, Pride refuses to budge. Eventually, her dad has to step in and take the old man aside for a private chat. Sensing a red flag, Pride borrows Stale's power to sneak in and eavesdrop on her dad's talk with the prime minister. She finally realizes the real reason he's rushing the bill. He's trying to save his fiancée, Maria. He wants to use the law to hunt down anyone with healing magic to cure her. This is when Pride suddenly remembers the heartbreaking plot point from the game. In the original timeline, even if the bill passed, Maria wouldn't make it and would eventually depawn. Worse yet, that law later became Pride's favorite tool for controlling and ending a massive number of gifted people. The prime minister ended up being clutched by Pride, spending the rest of his life as a powerless old man drowning in regret. To dodge this tragic ending, Pride decides she and Stale need to save Maria themselves. By now, the prime minister has already left the palace. Since he couldn't get the law passed, he's trying to pay thugs to find a healer. Unfortunately, he runs into a pack of scammers who take his money and then try to attack him. But the Prime Minister isn't exactly soft. He drops some military tier martial arts and leaves most of them biting the dust. Just as things get heated, Pride and her brother Stale make a clutch landing, clapping the remaining thugs until they're biting the dust. The second she spawns in, Pride drops a cold truth on Prime Minister Gilbert: today is the day Maria logs out of Earth forever. This sentence has him completely system frozen, his mental state collapses, and he loses all will to fight. He starts trauma dumping about his trash tier past. Back in the day, he was a bottom feeder who'd do anything from theft to robbery just to survive. He thought his life was mid until he met Maria, a noble girl sneaking out for the first time. Because of her illness, she was always locked up, and he was the first outsider she ever met. She didn't care if he was trash, she even told him he could depawn her if he wanted, as long as he lived on to see this beautiful world in her place. Maria's gentle vibe had Gilbert down bad instantly. He took her to a mountaintop for $1 million view, and they even set a date to meet there 3 days later. Since meeting her, he decided to U-turn, rebrand his life, and grind through the class barriers. He eventually climbed to the Prime Minister's seat and proposed. She said yes instantly, and it looked like they were going to be living together happily ever after. But life isn't a wholesome rom-com. Maria caught an incurable, permanent buff illness. On her deathbed, she told him to live his best life, leaving him heartbroken and crying waterfalls as he swore to save her. Stale, who already hated the guy for trash-talking Pride, sees that Gilbert was ready to pivot into human trafficking and kidnapping gifted people, even selling royal secrets. Stale is ready to use his sword to patch the old man out of existence right then and there. However, Pride stops him with a chill out, bro. She walks up to Gilbert and gives him one last chance. Lead the way, I'll save her. She heads straight to the Night Order to grab Arthur. Arthur doesn't even have to think about it, he closes the deal immediately for Pride. Stale then shows off his skills, transforming into his adult form and teleporting the whole squad to Maria's house in a single beat. Seeing Maria's pulse fade to a whisper, Pride tells Arthur to hold her hand and reveals a world-shaking secret: Arthur's true hidden skill is universal restoration. In a flash, the incurable disease is slapped away. Maria is back to 100% health like nothing ever happened. But Pride is low-key panicking. According to the game script, Arthur wasn't supposed to find this hack for another 5 years. She's worried she's bugged the entire map by flipping the script so early. After everything settles, Gilbert drops to his knees to apologize, confessing to every dirty move, from spreading rumors to gain allies to planning to trade royal intel for info on gifted people. Pride orders him to keep this under the rug from the king and queen, and everyone present has to wipe their cache of this event. But she's not letting him off easy. She makes him swear in front of Maria, until your heart stops, you will be a busy bee serving this country. No retirement for you. Since Gilbert's power is eternal youth, even if Maria leaves first, he has to stay and carry the team. In the original lore, he once told Tiara he'd committed too many sins and had to stay to protect the kingdom as penance. So, Gilbert makes a dead serious vow, performing the highest rite of loyalty to Pride. Arthur and Stale are just watching like, wait, is this a punishment or a reward for this old man? Back at the palace, Gilbert goes public with the marriage news. Pride takes the opportunity to matchmake Stale and the Prime Minister, making them reconcile so they can carry the nation together later. The next day, on the way back, the carriage gets bumpy because someone is blocking the road. They check and find the criminal Val passed out. Naturally, Pride hauls him back. When Val wakes up and sees Pride, he's absolutely soul-shook. Pride knows that because of the slave contract, he can't even think about resisting. She's certain he's facing a massive red flag situation if the contract forced him to crawl back to her for help. She orders him, spill it, don't make me use the pro methods on you. This is when she finds out Val knew 2 kids from the slums who got snatched by human traffickers. They gave him an ultimatum: if you don't bring us 5 other kids by tomorrow, prepare to be logged out. Poor guy, under the absolute mental manipulation of the slave contract, Val can't even stir up trouble if he wanted to. He figured Pride wouldn't give a damn about his problems and was ready to U-turn and bail to save himself the headache. No such luck. Pride barks out an order: stay right there. She immediately mobilizes her A-team, Stale and Arthur, to gear up for combat and rescue the 2 kids. She drops a heavy-hitting declaration: the citizens of this kingdom are not merchandise you can just buy and sell whenever you feel like it. However, while the squad is busy prepping and gathering intel, Val almost demolishes the building by trashing the room to vent his stress. He doesn't dare touch a hair on Pride's head, but he treats that furniture like his worst enemy. Arthur and Stale are system frozen for 5 seconds out of pure shock. Little sister Tiara sees right through him and gently asks, "You're really worried about those 2 kids, aren't you?" Val immediately flips into Tsundere mode, denying everything and claiming those kids are just tools to make his life easier. That clueless answer leaves Tiara totally heartbroken. To save her sister from a mental boom caused by Val's toxic attitude, Pride tells everyone to beat it so she can have a private chat with him. She realizes he genuinely wants to save the kids but is too proud to accept help from his enemy. Pride catches him in 4K, calling out his fake ego. "So, what's more important right now, your petty pride or the lives of those 2 kids?" Val is left speechless, completely system-locked. Finally, he opens up about his family as a zero past. Ghosted by his parents as a kid, he had to survive the slums solo, getting into combat every day just to avoid logging out of life. Slowly, he learned how to clap back and survive the wild. Anytime a sweet deal to make money popped up, he closed the deal instantly right up until the day he ran into Pride and ended up as her slave. When he first went back to the slums, he met those two poor kids. They were just like he used to be, getting slapped with rocks by the other neighborhood kids. The moment the bullies saw how tough Val looked, they vanished. The older sister, Sifek, started following him like a shadow, thinking that sticking with this big boss was her best bet for protection. Val tried to block them at first, but Sifek's persistence was high tier, and he eventually gave in. Even though they aren't blood related, Sifek took such good care of her little brother Kemet that it actually touched Val's cold heart. After a few months of them clinging to him, their presence became the new normal. Val got used to having minions around and even taught them the value of money. He soon found out they were pros with special abilities used for selling water. He took the money they earned but made sure to buy them food in return. Over time, he started valuing them more than he'd ever admit. The kids would even track him down at his day labor jobs to nag him, "Come home for dinner, bro." His co-workers were low-key jealous because he actually had a wholesome family vibe going on. But he never saw the red flag coming. He came home from work to find Sifek and Kemet had been carried off by traffickers. The bitter part? Because of his contract with Pride, he couldn't even go into berserker mode to fight them off. That's why he was forced to crawl back to her. Even though he kept saying the kids were annoying, his face was showing a level of worry that was totally real. Realizing he was caught caring, he got grumpy all over again. Pride clocks him as a member of the Liar Club. He cares way more than he lets on. He's so distressed by their kidnapping that he thinks his internal system is bugging out. In a fit of rage, he shoves Pride, blaming her for everything. He yells that if she had just despawned him back then, he wouldn't have to deal with this hallucinatory heartache. Then, he starts crying like he's never cried before. Watching him break down, Pride starts to feel the melancholy herself. She realizes he's a newbie when it comes to emotions and has no idea how to express pain. She steps in for a tight hug, telling him that the reason it hurts so much is because he's finally found something more precious than money or his own life. A total heart-healing moment. To help him out of his mental slump, Pride decides to let Val join the rescue op. She reports the situation to Prime Minister Gilbert, who cooks up an absolute fire plan, infiltrate the enemy hideout and then coordinate with the Night Order for a clean sweep of the traffickers. He uses his power to transform Pride and Stale into little kids so Val can lead them in as merchandise bait. As expected, the kidnappers have zero honor and decide to bag Val along with the kids. Once they reach the hideout, Stale flips into magician mode, untying himself and shipping the guards straight to the Night Order's prison for a little interrogation to find the HQ's coordinates. He then teleports the other victims to safety. With the initial sweep done, Pride's team splits up. One group goes for the rescue, while the other finds the siblings Val was so stressed about. They end up just chilling and getting to know each other while waiting for the chaos to start. When the older sister, Sifek, hears that Pride was captured by Val, she feels 100% guilty and starts apologizing like crazy. Unfortunately, her loudspeaker voice attracts the bandits. In the heat of the moment, Sifek unleashes a high-pressure water shield, slapping the enemies until they're all biting the dust. On the other side, Val uses his earth shield to pull aggro, giving Stale the opening to sneak into the high-security ward to rescue a high-tier gifted prisoner. Turns out, the prisoner has completely disconnected from reality, glowing with electricity like a superhero transformation. Stale has to risk it all, eating a literal 100,000-volt shock just to get close. He manages to talk this Pikachu down, promising that in a few years, the kingdom will be a safe haven for people like them, because the princess is out here grinding every day to improve everyone's lives. After successfully shipping the Pikachu out, Stale passes out from getting fried. Luckily, the Night Order respawns just in time to carry Pride's crew to safety. Meanwhile, Val is getting beaten down by the mob, and Stale is still logged out. It's up to Prime Minister Gilbert to solo the field, stalling for time until the knights can engage in full-on combat with the bandits. Thanks to the Prime Minister's support, Pride finally reforms into her adult body. With those broken boss stats, she's mucking around like she's got a hack, slicing through chains and even having bullets with her sword. She's a total war goddess. She then flips the switch to Queen mode, ordering the knights to delete the trash. But just as the map looks clear, a mysterious organization appears, launching a high-altitude airstrike on their position. The knights try to bail, but then they find out the two siblings ran off on their own. They find Sifek quickly, but her brother Kemet is pinned behind a landslide. Val is frantic, trying to use his earth shield to hold the weight, but the rocks are way too heavy. He starts digging with his bare hands. As the tunnel prepares to collapse, Pride tells everyone to retreat, but Val refuses to move. He begs her to let him stay and uses a shield to block anyone from helping him. Outside the cave, Sifek is crying a river, desperate to go back in. However, her water shield is now as weak as a leaky garden hose. Gilbert realizes the game trick: Sifek's power is nerfed because she's away from Kemet. Basically, the little brother is a walking stat booster. Pride hauls it back to find Val immediately, telling him to grab Kemet's hand before using his skill. The result is hallucinatory. Val's shield buffs by like 50x, easily holding up the cave. They rescue the kid and use an earth roller coaster to zip everyone out. The mysterious org gets salty and drops more bombs, cracking the ground and leaving Sifek hanging off a cliff in a total life or death moment. To save her, Val doesn't even hesitate to base jump after her without a parachute. He never thought a villain like him would ever sacrifice his life for someone else. Just as he's about to hit the ground for real, Pride dives down like a legend. She whistles to wake up Stale, who uses a clutch teleport to save Val's life. The two kids hug their big bro and cry like babies. Back at the capital, Pride closes the deal on a job for Val's squad. They're now the royal special envoys, meaning their lives are officially cozy. Val kneels for a nightly vow of loyalty. Pride is touched by the sentiment, but then the old man gets a little too interactive, scaring the soul out of her. Honestly, wholesome kids like Pride, Stale, and Arthur are no match for this slippery veteran. They're all turning beet red. To avoid any not-for-kids moments, Pride quickly leads her crew away. Little does she know, Val has officially fallen for her because she created a job specifically for him. After this, to protect Pride even better, Stale and Arthur hit the extreme training, even teaming up to slap the Prime Minister around. The bond within this harem is getting tighter than ever. Pride grabs their hands and declares, "You two are my wings, let's carry this kingdom together." And that's a wrap on Season 1 of the Villainous Queen's Redemption Tour. Overall, the quality of this show is top tier and very addictive. The main girl transmigrates as a villain but chooses the merit-grinding life, turning all her old enemies into stand members who claim they can never repay her. Sure, the budget was a bit low, the art was amateur at times, and the music felt rushed, but the writing is solid. It doesn't ruin the vibe at all. The pacing is clear and smooth, definitely a high-tier pick in the isekai genre. If you're a fan of the villainous lady trope, you absolutely cannot sleep on this one. What kind of glitch will Pride face next? Can she keep turning the wheel to dodge the ultimate tragic ending? We'll have to wait for Season 2 to find out. Don't forget to smash that like and subscribe button. I'll see you all in Season 2.